It's such a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm a journalist. I've written at places like the New York Times, New York Magazine, but I'm also a dater. And it's almost like my second job, like many women in New York City. I can tell you from the reporting and the research on dating that anyone dating in 2025 knows it can be an emotional roller coaster. You know, there's epic romance, there is great tragedy sometimes, and then most of all, it just feels like comedy, like deep, dark humor comedy sometimes. And that's why we're here tonight at the Comedy Cellar in New York City. Doors down from Carrie Bradshaw's apartment, which is full of shoes and broken hearts, and that's a Sex and the City reference for the straight men out there who do not know. But how many people who've come here tonight have used a dating app? Can you raise your hands if you have? Okay, majority. That's 30% of Americans have dated online on dating apps or on sites like eHarmony for, that's a way back reference, way back machine reference out there for the growing segment of boomers. Who here has had a good experience on those dating apps? Can you? Okay, that's great. Who here has had some not great experiences on the dating apps? Look at you cheering for your not good experiences. Yes, there you go. And so tonight we're here to debate this question. Is it time to break up with dating apps? And I'm really excited to introduce our two debaters who are here to join me in that question today. The first up, arguing yes, that it is time to break up with dating apps, we have fourth generation matchmaker, Maria Avgitidis. Maria, come on up here. And as Maria comes up, I'll tell you a little bit about her. Her family has been in the matchmaking business for 4 generations. She's the CEO now at Agape Matches. And Maria herself has set up something like 5,000 plus dates. And I think that's almost as many as I've been on. So yeah, that's great.
I'm excited.
You're excited. Tell us what Agape means.
Agape. God, Greek people have like a gazillion phrases for love, and we have 5 words for love, and Agape's like the big one. So that's the ultimate love.
There's like pragmas, love of grandparents.
Story, mania. We even have a word for bad love.
Oh, really? What's that?
Mania, right?
Yes.
Like, that obsessive.
Crazy ex-girlfriend love.
It's usually the guy.
Oh.
But.
See, look, that's good. Arguing that dating apps are here to stay, we have Melissa Hobley. Melissa is a dating app maven. She started at OkCupid. She is now the global chief marketing officer of Tinder. You guys might be familiar. Tinder. Look at that Tinder love. Or as I like to call it, Grindr for straight people. See, Melissa was scared to come here tonight because she learned that Maria was a high school debater.
No.
Actually,
this is worse.
Was it not high school?
No, college. I cannot believe I agreed to do this. I truly cannot believe I agreed to do this. Defending and arguing for dating apps in a city where it is so hard to date, like New York City, means I'm insane. But when Naima asks you to do something, she's like, it'll be fun, don't worry. And then I know Maria, I love Maria, I really respect her, I love her work. And I said, we chatted for a second. We didn't compare notes, don't worry.
Okay, good.
She goes, I've never really done this. I'm from a small high school in Indiana. She goes, oh, you'll be fine. I was in college debate. And I said,
it paid for my college, actually.
I have Pictionary cards, and Maria has a thesis on dating apps.
All right. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Before we dive in, I just want to clarify that you're both in the business of dating, but you yourselves are not on dating apps, correct?
I'm married.
That didn't answer the question, Maria.
It's so funny you say that because a lot of my matchmaking colleagues do go online to find matches. My company, Agape Match, does not do that. We've always taken a more inbound marketing approach by creating a lot of content to get people to trust me to be your matchmaker and have that personal experience with me and my team, my amazing team. But none of us on our team go online.
I'm on all the apps. I am married. My hot husband is sitting over there.
He's the one that raised his hand about coming here to meet someone tonight. I think he met you.
Maybe, that's possible. But I'm on all the apps because I need to know what that experience is like. And I'm on the apps in Chicago and Paris and Germany and Muncie, Indiana. And I'm on as a man, as a woman. I need to know what that experience is like.
You're a catfisher extraordinaire.
Well, no, I'm not going on dates, but I need to be there's a glitch here. Or like, why does this take so long? Or like, wow, the guys in Greece really are hot. Girls, what are you doing?
Yeah, guys in Greece really are hot.
They are.
You know, it's funny that because
We've seen the
we
TikToks.
do online dating help for a lot of our clients, and it's just so interesting how we have a whole product line to make the experience better for people.
All right.
But we'll get into
We're getting into a debate. All right.
I love it.
Look at college debate Reese Witherspoon over here. Okay, let's see. Okay. We're now going to get to opening statements. I want each of you to take a few minutes, to explain your position on this question. Is it time to break up with dating apps? And Maria, you're up first. You're arguing that yes, it is time to break up.
I stand on the position of yes, it is time to break up with dating apps, but not because I want to throw technology out the window, but because the way we use dating apps and the way these platforms are designed is what is keeping us frustrated and exhausted and single. Now, the main reason is the paradox of choice. When you provide singles, in this case, an unlimited amount of matches, we tend to make very poor decisions. And it's because we become victims of our indecisiveness. I think about my dad. My dad went to go buy a watch, and he once went to a really big watch store. He was confronted with 1,000 watches. Of course, he left because of the choice paralysis from the store watchless. The next day, he went to a mom and pop shop watch store. They presented him with 20 watches. He left with a watch and even bought one for his wife as well. So the paradox of choice is real. And when we are confronted with too many choices, we do not choose wisely. In fact, in online dating specifically, unearned characteristics, superficial characteristics rise to the top. At the same time, a consequence of having unlimited matches and being able to swipe people very quickly is that people become disposable. We treat each other terribly because we take away the humanity from being humans on this app, which is ironic because this app is supposed to help us connect with other people. I recall a friend going online, and in one of her photos, she's wearing an Eagles jersey. It was the last photo. Of course, the guy never went through the whole profile. But nonetheless, as they're vibing and they're bantering and they're having a great time, he sees her Eagles jersey photo, and he says, "Oh, I could never date a person who supports the Eagles," which, what an idiot, go Birds. But also, he immediately unmatched her. That is hurtful, and that happens every single day. And so because of that disposability, because we are unable to be authentic with each other, we are hurting ourselves with this unlimited match scenario. But also the second reason is we have gamified dating. And in fact, the apps are gamifying dating. Dating apps might say that they want to help you find love. And I believe them. I do believe that they want to help you find love. But they could do such simple things to help you with that experience. For instance, if you're scanning your IDs, why not make sure that the age and the height on that ID matches the profile? And by the way, if you are 50 years old and lying about your age, let me tell you something, you look your age, stop it. Because people are going on dates with a different expectation and reality does not meet that expectation. But also in that scenario where we've gamified dating, it's kind of like they're slot machines. And like a casino, the house always wins. The unintended consequence of this gamification of, ooh, we're a match, is that we have a scenario where people are getting dopamine hit after dopamine hit after dopamine hit. People in this room have also faux validated, I'm certain of it. What that means is you swipe on someone that you would never actually go on a physical first date with them, but you want to know if they like you too. You are hurting the accountability of that app, and the app allows you to do that. The apps keep us hooked as a result. Those little dopamine hits, you being on the couch, swiping away as The Office rerun plays. Some of you have swiped on the toilet. Clap if that's been the case, I know. So we are just being terrible to each other and not really considering the time and space of what we're actually doing here, which is some of us are looking for partners who want to be together. And the least that the online dating app could do is at least offer a personality test where we can at least match on if we have shared values, a shared moral compass, and the same intention of what kind of relationship we hope to have using these tools.
Thank you, Maria. That college debate work.
I didn't even know there were college scholarships for college debate, and I am so glad to be on stage with someone who got one of those.
All right. Okay, well,
right,
we've
let's
heard
go.
your opening argument. Now, arguing that no, it is not time to break up with dating apps, Melissa Hobley.
First of all, I think it's quite evident that Maria has not been on dating apps for a couple of reasons. I want to address her points first, and I'll get into my argument. Number one, there are not unlimited choices. We do not let you swipe endlessly. That's not true. You may be able to do that on TikTok and other places. You cannot do that on Tinder today, and many of you know what I'm talking about, those who are using. It's not a casino scenario. Casinos are luck. You have the power and the control in an app. It is about what you put in, what you get out. And by the way, I think I'll say many times tonight, dating is hard. Dating is so hard. And I was single in the city for a very long time, and I get that. And I had that experience, and I didn't realize that would be like a helpful job qualification when I was interviewed to like join Tinder 2 years ago. Yes, single in New York City for 10 years, you're hired. Also, I like the Eagles reference. Does anybody know that America's sweetheart couple and one of the most beloved Eagles players of all time, Jason and Kylie Kelsey, met on Tinder? Bet you did not know that. So I want to kind of put a few things out there. Now, let's get into why. We're going to get into lots of back and forth. I want to address those points. Let's get into a couple of points. By a show of applause, who here is in a happy relationship or knows someone in a happy long-term relationship from a dating app? That's a lot of applause. Thank you. Thank you, friends in the audience who clapped extra loud. So why should you stay on the apps and not break with us? One, they work, as evidenced by the not statistically significant sample size in this room. But let me give you two other quick data points. A recent Stanford study said that half of all relationships in the US start on an app. Half. If you are part of the LGBTQ community, it is as high as 70 to 80%. So they work. Why do they work? I think that's part of the argument is why you shouldn't delete us. One, societal and cultural trends mean we are not meeting people the way that we used to. You don't have to go to bars. If you're a woman, you don't have to be married and popping out babies in your 20s. You can make the decision to couple up when and if you want to, and apps are there throughout that journey. And by the way, I want to talk about like the convenience factor of that. Our phones are the center of our lives. And there is a dark side to that, and there's a downside to that. We totally appreciate that. We live in a digital era, but apps meet you where you are. I like that I could be on a couch watching Real Housewives and swiping. I want you to think about the single mom who maybe she is a nurse, maybe she has a night shift, maybe she works at the Comedy Cellar. How is she going to meet people? Is she going to happy hours that requires a babysitter? That might require a shift change. I want you to think about all of the communities of people that are meeting on apps because of Tinder. Related to that point, dating apps introduce you to people that you otherwise might not meet. And I bet that some of the couples that are in this room tonight would say, I met on an app, we would have never crossed paths in real life. I want to lay out a point that's really important that you may not know about, and that is about the role that dating apps, but especially Tinder, play in the lives of marginalized communities, including and especially LGBTQ. Half of all LGBTQ Americans are coming out on Tinder before they come out to their family and friends. The first metric at Tinder is not, did we get your credit card? It's not, did you go on a date? It's not, did you get swipe rights? It's, did we affirm who you are when you were coming in the door? Did we make you feel great about that? We have over 50 genders. We have over 9 sexual orientations. That is fluid and evolving, and we have a team of engineers constantly studying and measuring and monitoring that. So I'm going to have to wrap up in a minute, but I think I want to acknowledge, again, dating is really hard. I think that some of the behaviors that Maria laid out are not because of dating apps. They are because dating and courtship has been difficult since the dawn of civilization, and we can't fix it. We're trying. We can't fix it, but we found a way to still provide love. Today on Tinder, we have 50 million users in any given month. I think Pete Davidson has dated maybe half of those people, but there are amazing people on the apps. Dating is hard, but we make it easier.
All right. All right.
I wish this was my
Look at this. This is like the WWE of dating debates. Let's go. All right. So we've just heard our opening arguments. Maria laid out that it's time to break up with dating apps because of this paradox of choice, your dad's watch story. The quantity over quality really was one of your arguments, the disposability of the dating app world, and this kind of over-filtering. And I'm not talking about face tuning, but this idea of heightism or choosing on the basis of these superficial criteria you laid out. And then you made the argument about gamification, the endlessness of it, the validation that we're seeking, and the kind of the lack of authenticity that comes out. So those are some of the arguments made. for breaking up with dating apps. Melissa, shots fired back, disputed that it's an endless gamified stream. Argued that there are caps, but also was really arguing that it's not time to break up with dating apps because they work. They work because they lead to some matches. They lead to many matches in this room in particular, and that there's new relationships born every 3 seconds from a dating app. And also you argue that there's convenience that's in it. This is equalizing the playing field in some way, particularly for marginalized communities, particularly for people like single mothers who don't have the luxury of time. But I think central to Melissa's argument, you're saying that a lot of the problems that Maria identified, things like people, clap if you're familiar, breadcrumbing, ghosting,
catfishing,
benching, catfishing,
submarining,
pen pals.
Yes, pen paling, yes. Those are not, you're saying these are not the product of the apps. They are the product of the culture in some way, and the problem of dating.
And the product of living in a digital world. You meet somebody on Instagram and you'll still use those phrases to describe them. In fact, most of those phrases come from how people behave with us after we've gone out on a date with them or we've met them on Tinder or another app. And that's actually where these definitions come from. Like, they surface up on your Instagram, they like a story, and then they fade away.
But do you think that the apps and the propensity of the apps have changed the culture, which I think is part of what Maria
It's funny. I started my business way before Tinder came out. I've been a matchmaker for more than 15 years. And prior to 2012, which is a really important year, right? Because it's not, prior to 2012, if you wanted to online date, you had to get out your desktop. You had to log in the internet. And people scrolled through profiles, and it was pay to play, which meant that you had some skin in the game. But the moment it went to an app-based world, you had it in your phone, you could do it, whatever. And listen, online dating apps are going to stay just as much as Zillow's going to stay with real estate, but there's also pitfalls and perks to both, right? But with that said, I'll tell you a really big difference in the matchmaking world, and from my perspective. Prior to 2012, when people would come into my office, they were not imperial measurement experts. They were not saying stuff like they have to be 5'7", and no one ever has ever said that. They have to be 6 feet tall. But now, I now have clients in the last 8 years who come in and say stuff like they have to be at least 5'9", or I'm not interested in going on a first date with them. And this blows my mind, because if I took these two people and I introduced them at this bar or at a comedy club, if they sat together and they vibed, they'd be going on a date. They would not be bringing out the rulers.
I don't think that's true. I think that women in bars are like, he's not tall enough. And by the way, I don't think you should do that, ladies. I think Short King Spring is coming. I think that we should not discriminate on height.
I love a short king.
I love a short king.
Love it. Love a short king. Listen, if it's good enough for Zendaya, it is good enough for us. Let's go.
I'll tell you what. And I also think, Maria's earlier point too is like, verify their height. We do ID verification on Tinder. It's not mandatory. ID verification is not even mandatory with my Chase banking app, but we do offer it.
But is the height and the age? Like, you can verify them that this name John is John.
Age, yes, but your height is verified at the DMV. And by the way, when I went to the DMV, they vetted me. So we're not a government institution. I think
people lie to their DMV officers too.
I don't think they allow that in New York. I don't know. I could be wrong.
But this idea, what Maria's really arguing is that there are these filters that are put up ahead of time that limit, that you're saying it's an expansive world on the dating apps, and Maria's arguing actually it's kind of a limiting world as well.
I think it's a really good point, and I think both things are true. I think, and by the way, here's what I observe. Here's my dating tip for the night. I observe women, and I bet Maria has this too, that say, I want 6'4" finance, blue eyes, or I want this college, this neighborhood, this car, They take dinner to Nana every Sunday. This is what women do, and you are so judgmental, and you move really fast. So I think that is true. I think that was true before apps. I think this is what I heard from my friends in the 2000s, that I wanted this and this and this and this. I want someone my religion. I want this and I want this. So I think women have done that, and I think there's good and maybe not helpful reasons why we did that. But I also think I want to give you choice. I want to give you choice. It is hard to be a woman. We are finally at a place in our lives where we are outpacing men in college education. We are outpacing men in getting graduate degrees and PhDs and MBAs. We are 3% of board seats in America. We are 10% of corporate executive level seats in America. And so, yes, if you want to tell me a list of things that you want to date, I'm going to try to do that for you.
I once heard that it took about 11 hours of online dating to go on a physical date. And so if we're going to break up, and I know that sounds harsh, you can pretend it's Ross and Rachel and we can be on a break. But what I'm asking from you is to take those 11 hours and maybe reevaluate how you are going into community. Because you're right, dating has always been a struggle for many people, even before online dating apps. But the difference was that they were in their community. They were not on their couch looking for a mate. And that is what's happened, is we're allowing people to just stay home, swipe, swipe, swipe. And by the way, when it comes to the attention, people swipe as fast as they swipe away a TikTok video. And the intent, I mean, truly the intent and the sexual preference that comes from this, I can appreciate that Tinder has certainly opened the doors for marginalized communities. But there are a lot of women who are looking for monogamous, serious relationships that could lead to marriage. And they're seeing profiles of people who want to participate in ethical non-monogamy, the trend of 2024.
But but you can listen, fair points. You can filter on those things on not just Tinder, but on many apps. And
presuming people are honest about their.
Yeah, assuming people are honest. And listen, are they honest? It'd be disingenuous of me to say people are 100% honest on an app. But I'd also argue they're not 100% honest if you meet them at a bar. I think some of these issues have existed.
I think that part of what Maria's bringing up, though, is this idea of like kind of social atrophy. People are actually taking this break that Maria talked about. Gen Z are less likely to be on dating apps. There's a huge boom in, Eventbrite world of in real life, speed dating, getting together, and people are saying we don't want to be with the app. So how do you make sense of that? What do you think is
and by the
happening
way, here's what I think. If you look at the data, we started spending more time alone pre-COVID. We don't like to talk about COVID anymore. We're all over it. But COVID accelerated that. And if you look at the data post-COVID, we're spending substantially more alone time. We never really course corrected from the alone time we started spending in COVID and went back out into our communities and our world. And so the data is a little bit scary there. You layer on the explosion of TikTok, you layer on the explosion of social apps and YouTube and other things, and you've got a lot of forces at play here. Do I think it's awesome to be out there? Absolutely. Listen, I believe in love and connection. I don't think that you should only be on Tinder on a dating app. I don't think that. I think you should be out there in the world. That is not happening. It's not happening. And so what can you do? You can try to meet people where they are. You can try to make them feel good. You can try to be like a bestie in the app and encourage them and be like, you're great, you're amazing. And that's what you can try to do. And again, I want to go back to the data. It is working. It is working.
One of the things that I mentioned in my opening statement was that I know it's going to be huge what I'm going to say, but a very simple way to get people. Look, as a matchmaker, I've always wanted to connect the people with the right people. And sometimes I feel like when we are online dating, we're just connecting people with people who are in a 5-mile radius where you don't have to switch 2 subways to get to them. And I can appreciate that. However, there is small things that we could do, and a personality test where we can at least match people on their shared values and moral compass. I'm so tired of hearing women tell me that, well, he didn't vote the way I did, and now I feel like this, and he told me and it's like, whoa, we don't even have to talk about voting parties. Can we at least get a moral compass test in here so that people are being matched with the right people on these dates?
That does exist. It's called OkCupid, and I worked there for 6 years. So that exists out there. Those things are out there. But here's what you're missing. And I really respect matchmaking. I'm not coming for it at all. I think it's incredible. Most people can't afford $30,000 of a matchmaker. But here's the other thing I'll say is Gen Z is not doing that. You know why Tinder exploded? Because Gen Z does not want to take 45 minutes to fill out a profile. They don't want to do it. And the loneliness epidemic is hitting Gen Z the hardest. And so I think you're not connected to a generation of people that have grown up with phones. They got phones at 10 or 11 or 13. How you feel about that as a positive or negative isn't really the point. The point is they are digital creatures. And so this is where they are. This is how you're going to meet them. It's how they're getting the news, how they're talking to their family, how they're working, how they're doing everything. And so to have an app there to help them is great. If you want a personality test, OkCupid still exists. Other apps exist which take a lot more time and onboarding, and they'll tell you, here's what you align on and here's where you don't. We don't believe in that at Tinder for our experience.
So and I want to ask you, but both of you are bringing up, by the way, I'm just hearing a lot of like women blaming in this crowd. I'm not blaming you, but like that women are the ones that have the criteria. Women are the ones that are frustrated with the dating apps. But there's also a lot of women looking for. I mean, there are a lot of men on the dating apps.
I do care about the male, the man experience here, and that experience is a really some really great guys have terrible profiles. And one thing that an online dating app could do is help them with the prompts and help them select the right photos. But also perhaps you have AI help them out a little bit, because here's what's a common thing that is happening for a lot of men. They're sending 40 messages in a 48-hour span and not getting a single response back. And then you have terrible men who have fantastic profiles. And man, if they are 6'4", they lean onto that crutch with all of their weight.
That's true.
It's crazy.
No,
but in the sense, but you mentioned Gen Z, and the thing is, Gen Z has logged off. So I think Time Magazine said that the majority of college students are not online dating, and it was somewhere between like the 70 or 90%. And I want to acknowledge that, like, again, online dating apps, they're here to stay. But what I am seeing is that Gen Z wants authenticity. That is the number one thing that they ask for. In fact, that is from a Tinder study. And sometimes the way the online dating app is designed, it is really hard for us to be authentically ourselves. I can appreciate that Hinge, and I think Tinder also have the voice note feature. It allows people to be humorous, but they also want accountability and to have more meaningful connections. And because Naima also mentioned Eventbrite saw a 269% increase in dating they collaborative events from Gen Z. Like, they are seeing that people want to connect in person. This is a very digitally inclined generation. They know about the validation of swipes, but they also don't want to feel rejected online. Another way to get rejected.
So respond to that, Melissa.
Yeah,
because you've said this is a digital generation. They're going to be here. They are not
and
here.
it's simply
Maria's
not
telling
true
us.
that 79% of Gen Z is not on a dating app. It's not true. We have 50 million users a month. We have 3 billion swipes a day. I'm in 190 countries, and half of our users are Gen Z. 40%. Someone at Tinder can correct me, but the majority or a giant swath of our users are Gen Z. Of course they are. I mean, you go to TikTok and you'll see thousands and thousands and thousands of posts of their experiences on Tinder. Bad Bunny has us in his song on his new album. Like, we didn't pay for that. Thank God. It would have eaten like my
I don't
whole
think
budget.
you could have afforded it.
I could not have afforded whatever
yes.
Bad Bunny would charge to write you into a song. So Gen Z does want authenticity. That's also true. But it's also true that they want things to be easy. It's also true that they want it to be on the phone. It's also true that that is their life beat and the extension of themselves. Those things are also true. It's also true that they're taking their fit check to their Tinder profile. It's also true that they like that we have a pro-choice interest, an LGBTQ ally interest, and a sustainability interest. Those things are also true. And so what's the nice trends about Gen Z that we're starting to see is they are bringing more politics to their profile. We love that. You should. And you should do that. That is an ingredient to finding a happy relationship. But also at Tinder, like, we want to make voting hot, so we encourage that into the app. So I agree with a lot of Maria's points, but I also want to make the case that apps like Tinder are taking steps to slow you down, to add friction, to encourage you to put on your profile that you're pro-choice, to tell you you're going to get more likes if you talk about reproductive freedom.
So are those things, Maria, in your world that you're seeing, this over-filtered dating world, do you think those things are actually helping or hurting?
I actually think that they are helping.
They're helping.
But it has to be a filter that is more value-based. So when you talk about like being an ally to the LGBT community, that is a value. When you talk about voting is cool, that is a value that a lot of people do not hold. So the people who do value that should not be matched with those that do. And of course, it's up to them to perhaps use those filters. But the problem that we see, though, is that sometimes it's the over-filtration which makes us stick to our respective corners. Because at the end of the day, it is a human using this app, and they're not using it like the tool that it was intended, right? They're using it as a way to faux validate while they are eating ice cream at 11 p.m. on their couch, watching another showing of Crazy Rich Asians, instead of treating this app as if, okay, we'll use that as a tool, pretend I'm at a bar, get a glass of wine and start to swipe and actually give it some time. You know, you mentioned OkCupid. I love OkCupid. That's where I met you. I can appreciate OkCupid's personality test. But another app, though, that actually did have, I think they got rid of it, but Coffee Meets Bagel. They used to have you only get 10 matches a day. And as a result, I remember we did a focus group. And if you used Coffee Meets Bagel, and because you only got 10 matches a day, you were reading the entirety of their profile. You were taking your time. And if you both swiped right on each other, in our focus group, you had a 90% chance of meeting that person physically. But then when we tried it on Tinder, now this is back in 2016, if you swiped with someone on Tinder, the chance of you meeting that person was less than 5%. But it's, again, I'll acknowledge it is a user issue. And that user issue is that people faux validate swipes. Instead, you can give them as many matches as you want. You can have those caps, but also limit how many matches they get.
And by the way, that is true on most apps. It's not endless swiping. It may have been more like that in 2016.
I think what Maria is saying is not endless swipe. It's about like a certain proportion of people on all dating apps. The high value targets on a dating app, whether it's attractive women or attractive men, are getting the majority of the matches. What if you cap those?
That's not true. That's just simply not true. I've worked in this industry for 8 years now.
Less attractive people are getting more matches.
No, it's not true that only super hot people are getting matches, and that what you think about is millions of people are getting matches. I think we've had over 100 billion matches. Like, it's a lot of quantity. What you look at are
100 million.
No, 100 billion, because we've been downloaded 600 million times. Multiply that times 190 countries.
But that's many more people than there are
matches. Those are matches. Those are mutual right swipes. So you both.
You might think that's a problem. Maria might think that's a problem.
I don't think it's a problem for people to have access to people, especially since, like you said, we are different than we were 10 years ago. I mean, half of this room, I will assume, does remote work, at least a hybrid. So I understand, and like you mentioned, Naima, before, about there is a social atrophy. And so if you're home, it used to be before home and then work and then home and then work, pandemic, and now home. We're not even making new friends. So we look at these online dating apps to just make a connection. The problem is that we're not actually connecting. And one of those things that online dating apps could do is make it safer for the users. I can appreciate the new laws that just came out this week about how, dating apps are going to be helping singles not message people who have been banned on the app previously. I can appreciate that. But there's still unsafe messaging. The fact that I had to tell all of my followers that are nurses 3 weeks ago to stop writing nurse in their online dating profile because they get sexualized by other people is insane. I've told them either start putting our acronyms, RN, CNA, healthcare, just to stop the nurse sexualization.
Let me jump in for a second. I think the trust and safety issue is a really big one, and I don't think that we talk about that enough as an industry. So let me talk about a few things. One, we take this incredibly seriously at Tinder. I think that we are the leader. I know that we are the leader in the category on trust and safety. We have rolled out over 20 product features just in the last 3.5 years, many more before that. We are the only app where you can run a background check on your date. We'll pay for the first few. We have ID verifications, and we don't mandate that, but again, we flag, and you can only look at people that are ID verified. We have features like, does this bother you? So if AI and machine learning for a long time has allowed us to say, if a message is inappropriate, the recipient will never see it. But slang has made that harder. So if we're not sure about the message, we'll say, does this bother you? Because we weren't sure. And then it's easy to block and report. Same thing on the sender side. Are you sure about sending this? So there's a number of trust and safety features. If you're LGBTQ and you travel to a part of the world where it's not safe to be a part of that community, a giant pop-up will invade your space on the app and tell you to be careful, and then connect you to resources. So I think, by the way, the team at Tinder the executive team is all women and one guy, and the leadership team is 75% women. Maybe that is part of the reason why we're seeing this acceleration. But listen, I think that in some ways it can be safer to meet someone on an app than it can be to meet them in a bar.
Do you think that apps are contributing to social atrophy?
I don't think that. I think that a digital world, I don't think we should be blaming the apps for a lot of this behavior. I think social atrophy, again, is the cause of a lot of the factors that we already talked about tonight. And by the way, I agree, slow down. In fact, we rolled out a feature last year called Matchmaker, because I'm not coming from Maria's business, but because
it cost $30,000.
It doesn't cost $30,000. It's free. It's free, and it allows you to swipe for your friends. And so, because when your friends are with you, you slow down. Your consideration set is different. So I think. I just think we should not. I think we need to have some accountability and some ownership in how we're dating and how we're showing up. And by the way, I think that by blaming apps, listen, I'll say this. we are never done. I have an entire team of engineers and product designers who work on just safety around the world every single day. We're never done.
In terms of the social atrophy, it's not online dating, right? It's a host of a lot of things. It's because we are walking around with the internet. And some of us are old enough to remember what it was like to log in, hear the little door open, and get that. That was the dopamine hit right there.
Yes.
Oh my God, my crush
Yes.
came on, little ding, right? But I'm not blaming Tinder. If it wasn't Tinder, it would have been another app named Binder. Okay, you just happen to be on this stage, and I
Binder's
will say,
our new product.
Yeah, and I think that it's great that these sort of safety precautions are happening. It doesn't negate the fact that people are awful to each other because of the paradox of choice, where we consider each other as being disposable. The way we communicate, I know that people listening to this podcast right now cannot see it, but the audience is nodding. Make more noise. And that is real. The way we dispose of each other, the way we swipe with each other. If anyone here watched The King of Staten Island in the height of the lockdown, you remember Pete Davidson. Why are we talking about him so much today? You remember
He's a dating
him.
expert.
I wrote this in my book. He swiped 9 profiles in the span of 4 seconds. Yes, no, yes, yes, no. When he should have really been watching over his friends who were committing a felony. And that's what it is. You don't know who's swiping with you. They could be committing a felony at the same time.
That's it.
That's a new ad campaign. Slow down. Your friend might be committing a felony.
I have to say, I'm not in the pandemic, I was on the apps. In the pandemic, I think the apps were this like huge equalizer, and there was a boom. Certainly, stock prices shot up for dating app companies, user bases shot up for dating app companies. But these days there's so much. Like, I primarily date in real life or Instagram DMs. Like, people will hit you up on Instagram. So what do you think about, both of you guys are in the business of disintermediating a relationship in some way,
right?
Friction, or through dating app or through matchmaking. What about like opening up the world for people to meet themselves more? Or, I mean, how can people who have an incentive to keep people in the system or profit off the system?
Listen, I
really
want to jump in here.
Yeah.
First, my algorithm in the 2000s in New York City was 4 lemon drop shots and pretending I like Star Wars. Like, I think there was an algorithm out there for many of us that we would like to forget.
You needed to like Star Wars?
I pretended to like Star Wars. I don't even know. I don't
We're
even
gonna
know
ask your husband about this
So
later.
he doesn't really like Star Wars.
I
think he does.
I
I don't know.
told him I liked whiskey.
Oh, see, there we go.
I've never had whiskey since that date.
So you're saying it's just a tale as old as time?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is. I think we should slow down. I think that we should be more mindful and thoughtful. I agree with that. Again, like, we are doing that every week. We're rolling something out in the product to do that, to slow you down, to say add to your profile. We use AI to help you pick out your profile pictures, because that's like really hard and agonizing. And also, again, like, I want to acknowledge, like, it's really hard to date. It's really hard to put yourself out there. So while I believe in this, I also acknowledge that it's difficult. And I have incredible sympathy and empathy for those dating experiences.
I think part of the argument I'm hearing Maria make is that it's not just about the apps, it's about the users, and it's about the way in which we approach those apps. And so when you're saying it's time to break up with the dating apps, you're not just saying that because the dating apps, you're saying the person might
Some
have
of
the
us
problem.
need to take a break. Ross and Rachel, we were on a break. It's the same thing here, right? And to your point, right, one adjustment that we could possibly do is, like, maybe instead of them being able to swipe, I'm not your chief of product, so I don't even know why I'm doing this, but maybe instead of like being able to swipe, they can at least spend, like, there should be like at least a 15-second delay before they can swipe to the next one.
You can save that for Binder.
Binder.
That's it. Okay, so here's the thing.
Save that for Binder.
We're going to do this thing now in the debate where this has been a fabulous threesome. One of the best I've ever had, guys. But it is time to open up our relationship just a little bit. We would love to welcome questions from the audience. People who have questions here, specific to, is it time to break up with dating apps? Please come on up.
Hi there.
Welcome.
My name's Jonathan.
Hi, Jonathan.
I'm a fan of dating apps. I met my brilliant and beautiful fiance on a dating app. Thank you. But I guess my milieu is sort of disenchanted with dating apps lately. And last year I started a matchmaking practice. And what I've noticed from people who've signed up is that their experiences on dating apps happen in a vacuum, meaning their friends aren't really seeing it. They're not really accountable to their true personality. Are dating apps really incentivized to help you find sustainable connection? Or do they want you on the app?
I think that is a great question. I'm going to answer the second part of that first, which is our business model is not like Meta or Google or Facebook, Instagram. We are advertising. We do have advertising. It is a very, very, very small portion of our revenue. So if you don't have our money comes from subscriptions, just like Hulu or Spotify. There's a free version and there's a paid version. A giant portion of Tinder's users are free. They don't pay us anything. You will try our a la carte products, or you'll convert to gold or platinum Tinder if you want more control, if you want more efficiency. That's usually what you'll see with higher intent daters. We'll let you set your location to different places, those kinds of things. So what do we do to get you out on the date? This is something literally we have meetings about every single day at Tinder. And it's a lot of things. When you have a mutual match, we'll immediately say, you're both into sustainability. Ask her out. We really think about, and again, AI is going to make this even more powerful. I don't want AI to write your messages for you, but I want them to say, you were both at this concert 4 weeks ago in Brooklyn, ask each other about it. Like that kind of interesting stuff.
But maybe I think his question, John's question, was largely about accountability and sustainability, and talk about that not just from Tinder's perspective, but for the industry. How do dating apps help do that?
Sure. I think it's a good point. He talked about accountability to his friends. Let's talk about that for a second. I think, again, if we're looking at the scientific research all the time, we work very closely with Kinsey to understand, like, why are we doing what we're doing? Why are we more alone and more lonely, because those are not the same things. And we are spending so much time alone that is partly why you're not telling your friends about the date, or your friends aren't there to say, hey, this is like the 7th year in a row we've been doing happy hour. I can't wait for you to tell me that you can't because you're going to your girlfriend's parents' house. So I think there are larger issues at play here that are driving some of those issues. And dating apps are accountable. Listen, we're a public company, so we are accountable in a lot of ways. On the safety thing, our number one comment, do you know what it is? It's please unban me, because we take, and don't take my word for it, go to Instagram or TikTok, you'll see please unban me, let me back on, because we take safety so seriously. We're kicking you out of the bar very quickly.
Okay.
So I hope that answered your question. And congrats
Maria,
on becoming a
do you want to add
matchmaker.
anything?
I want to add something to one of the things he said, which is that it's his experience that people are dating in a vacuum. Their friends don't know. And there was a time when, for instance, Hinge, that's why it's called Hinge, they would show you who your common friends are. And unfortunately, that feature does not exist anymore. But here's the other thing that is also happening as it pertains to the dopamine that we're so addicted to. Someone will go on a first date, let's say on a Thursday, and it's a great first date, and they have a second date scheduled for Saturday. But then they go home. They're still game for that second date, but they also go on the app. And then that other user sees that they're on the app and is like, he's not into me, I don't want to go out. And what the reality is that nobody wants to know how the sausage is made. If any of you want to go into the kitchen and tell me what's happening, by all means, right? But nobody wants to see it, because the truth of the matter is that we are dating in vacuums. We have to acknowledge this. That person is having a single life and experience, and this person is having a single life and experience. And the purpose, I'm now going to be a little matchmaker, the purpose of a first date is to go on a second date. But the purpose also of a first date is not to figure out if, is this the person I'm meant to be with for the rest of my life? The purpose of a first date is let me show you who I am in this present moment. Show me who you are in this present moment. And maybe a few dates down the line, we can see how these single lives converge so that we could see what we're like dating together.
Good advice.
And by the way, I love that advice. You should follow Matchmaker Maria on Instagram or TikTok if you're not, because you really should. She drops so much wisdom and advice and tips if you're single. It's really amazing, and she'll put you in your place too.
I think anytime you someone say unban me, you should send them over there. That's the
we ban people too.
All right, we have another question from the crowd. Please come on up.
First of all, no shade to either of you. I think there's kind of flaws in both systems. One is we don't have $30,000 lying around, and if we did, I apologize for bringing up the number.
I didn't ask.
We do have a thing with matchmaking culture, I think, where we say, give them a try, even though sometimes our gut feeling says no. Sometimes we do have that. But with regards to Tinder, I'm taking a break off of Tinder and all apps because I've been on them on and off for 9 years. I don't want to make it 10. Something about that way the algorithm is set up, I was not getting matched with anybody who was remotely my type. They were set behind a paywall. Even when you tried out the paywall, you still weren't really getting matches with them. And there were all these little hacks, like refresh your account so you can get these roses suddenly in your feed, or try out this hack, or try out this different area code. And it just felt like we were trying to, again, hack the system and use these cheat codes that weren't working. So I think there's something to be said that, yes, we need to be dating in person. And I love what matchmakers do in that they look at people in the background, what they have in common on a socioeconomic status, on a cultural status.
Yeah, what's the question?
The question is, like, how do you get past these cheat codes and barriers in place? Like, I think you guys should be working together. Like,
We are.
dating events,
Guys,
hosting
this is-
in person.
We're just
events.
pretending to hate each other. Melissa's like my speed dial.
I guess how to
love
get
Maria.
over this
Okay.
mishigas is the general
Okay.
question.
How to get over the mishigas. So, Maria, I want Melissa, you to come
Do you
in
mind
on
if I ask
that,
what your
but-
name is?
Nicole.
Nicole. Nicole has had to become an algorithm expert to make the online dating app work for her. And that is something that's actually become one of our product lines. So I know you guys are stuck on this number, which is inaccurate. We are way more expensive. However, you get access to me every day for the next 6 months. Anyway, but that being said, though, we have an entire product line where we actually help people online date because we don't expect Nicole to become an algorithm expert. And the things that we have learned is that some apps need like 6 photos. You should have in your vault at least 10 photos. And that way you switch the photo every 48 to 72 hours, just one of them, to just refresh your profile. We've had to learn this over time. We've also had to learn that the prompts need to not be negative, that they have to be value driven and, tell us what you would typically do on a Sunday.
All right, thank you. Melissa, why don't you respond to this idea? I love that you're making more money. I was worried at only 30,000 a pop.
Maria's
but
a
We have
baller.
junior
She's-
matchmakers
she's
who take a lot. You
swimming
can
in
still
it.
call us.
She's a baller.
So,
Yeah,
respond
Nicole,
to this idea of dating.
Totally appreciate the question, and I hear you. And by the way, you may be surprised to hear this from somebody who works at Tinder, but it is a good idea to take a break. It is a good idea, and at Tinder we let you do that because you should. You should take breaks. It's again, dating is hard. Putting yourself out there is really hard. I'm sorry that you feel like you have to do that. I can't speak to. We don't have roses at Tinder, so I can't speak to all the apps and all the experience and situations. What I will say is, the apps are constantly iterating and they're fluid and they're working on things. And I will also say that there's seasonality. And so I'm sorry that you've had to learn some of those algorithms. It sounds like you found some hacks. I'll give you some of my insider tips if you want to after the show. I'll upgrade you to Tinder Platinum on me for a year.
What?
It's like $600. I think you're interesting and lovely. And like here's something that I often see is I see people that are amazing. I helped a woman who's she works with special needs kids in school. She's so amazing, and she wasn't talking about all the things that make her really interesting and cool. I'm sure interesting and cool. I'm happy to look at your profile and say, hey, here's some things that I would try or do to help you have more of a positive experience.
But respond to this. It was very nice, Melissa. But I'm gonna be a journalist here for a second. Say, but this idea of like taking users that have been on there for a long time and gating them from their desired outcome. Is that a phenomenon?
I don't get
you've
that
heard
criticism
of
at
feedback?
Tinder, and
Okay.
so I can't. It's really not something we hear at Tinder. And by the way, we don't hear. I wish. Myself, I have a girlfriend in the audience. I wish that I heard paradox of choice. I have so many great options. I don't know what to do. And I know when I go back, I'm going to see so many options. That is not what's happening. I wish it was. It is harder to find the great people, as Nicole's probably saying. It's why she's like re-downloading, starting back up, etc. I do think that apps are fluid. I do know that all of the apps have their heart is in the right place of getting you on the date and helping you find the person. The engineering is fluid, and so let's talk after. I'll give you some more.
Okay. Any more questions? We have one more. Yes. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much, both of you, for your time. This question is for both of you, but I want to start by referencing something that Maria alluded to, which is this dissatisfaction and the anguish and the pain that we deal with when we are on dating apps. And I want to get a little bit more clear. Is that dissatisfaction that people report from using dating apps due to the difficulty of, using them and swiping them and getting rejected or ghosted and the lack of payoff? Or is it actually because, like you both said, we're all very picky, and maybe we're all bad at predicting who's going to make us happy and who we are compatible with. And so therefore we're going on many bad dates that aren't leading to eternal happiness. And so is the question the app, or is the problem the app, or is the problem that we just don't know who will make us happy and who we will be compatible with?
All right. Maria, go ahead.
So one of the things that I hear in the dating space is that people will say that, oh, dating is a numbers game. And I don't think it's a numbers game. I think it's about learning how to use these tools to learn who to go out with correctly. So I'm actually going to kind of pivot this to talk about the Zillow app. Okay, it's really important.
I work at Zillow.
Oh, you do? All right, so you guys,
That's amazing.
have I got some feedback for you? Get on the stage.
A
Okay.
match made in heaven.
So I bought a house. Yeah, pun. I bought a house last year. Some of you followed this journey for 4 years, right? And the thing that I learned on Zillow is that there were a lot of houses that maybe fit in me and my husband's budget and the kind of life that we want to provide for our kids, right? Good schools, Central Jersey, you know, whatever. Central Jersey's a real place, guys. Okay, just trust me. Anyway, but with that being said, we did not choose to go to every single house that was listed within our budget that would fit the lifestyle that we wanted, right? In those 4 years of looking for a house, we saw 8 houses. We were, of course, provided many more options. So how is it that when some of us are on Zillow, we are aware, like, you know, to go to visit a house, you have to envision living the rest of your life there, right? You have to think about what it's going to be like with your kids running on the lawn, you know, going to schools, all that stuff, PTO meetings, selling Girl Scout cookies. You have to visualize it, right? And to become really picky. And this is what I'm saying. It's like, it's okay to swipe. It's okay to use this tool, but we have to be a little bit more. I'm not saying you need to be pen pals and talk more. In fact, I'm the person online who's constantly advocating for people to go out on a first date within 48 hours. But think about the kind of person you visualize yourself with. So that way you're not wasting your time messaging people that don't necessarily fit in that visual. And I think what's happening on online dating apps is it's like we see everyone and suddenly we become picky about the wrong criteria. But also we think we have access to them. How many men or women have matched on you? How many men or women have matched on you and you're like, ugh, as if. But the reality is they could do it because there was a button there that said that they could. And so this is what it is. It's, you know, it's learning what you're looking for before you go into these dating apps.
It's a really thoughtful question. I think the answer is both things are true. And by the way, you can swipe on anyone, but you can't talk to anyone. You know, the first actual trust and safety feature at Tinder is double opt-in. He can't talk to you unless you've also said yes to him. And I think it's both. I think that we are not as intentional. Again, if you look at the data and the research, there was a really great deep dive on this in The Atlantic just like 2 weeks ago. Gen Z is less romantically inclined than any other generation. The birth and marriage rates in Korea are lower than Ukraine. The birth and marriage rates in Japan are the lowest they've been since we started measuring. So there are larger systemic issues at play here. And again, like, I'm not objective, but I think that the apps can be there to help you and to be that nudge. And I'll say something else. Like, I think people think, oh, the most successful people are like the most gorgeous, wittiest, whatever, 6'4" guys on Tinder. And there's an element of truth to that. But actually, dating apps are equalizers. They're equalizers. If you're introverted, if you're neurodivergent, if you aren't going to happy hours and bars because you don't really feel comfortable there for a variety of reasons, or you're sober, dating apps are a place for you to meet that person. Every single day I get a DM or a message about, oh my God, we are so crazy about this thing. And like, we connected on that. And I saw it on their profile, their picture. And so I think both things are true. And I think we're hopeful for how things are shifting.
Thank you. Thank you
Really
for that
good question.
All right. This is where we're going to, thank you so much for that question. Now we're going to just wrap up. Before we get to closing arguments, I do want to ask you guys, because this is open to debate. We like for people to come here, listen, have civil debate, as you guys have both been very well behaved tonight. What have you heard from the other person that you thought was the most convincing argument to either Maria, keep the dating apps fired on, or Melissa, maybe power them down a little bit? Who wants to concede
You
first?
go first, debate queen.
You know, I really resent that Melissa is totally taken over my narrative. Anyway, I think her saying that the dating app is fluid and it is open to making the changes that it's hearing from an audience is a really big deal, right? That yes, while they are a publicly traded company who has shareholders that will only get happier if more people subscribe, it's really important for that subscription to go higher if they're providing a great service. So to have the CMO of Tinder on this stage saying that the dating apps are fluid and we listen and we've made XYZ changes, I think that is amazing.
Oh, look at that. An answer and some accountability in that answer. All
Listen,
right.
I don't disagree with a lot of Maria's points. We are too fast. We are too flippant. We are not thoughtful. We are not mindful. I think that where we disagree a little bit is I don't think that is because of the apps. I think the apps can play a role, and again, providing connection, and we've never needed that more. So, I think about the things that she's raised, and again, we see some of that. So I believe in that. And Maria is, a real champion for love and connection. So she says this from a place of passion. I'm saying this from a place of incredible, rich data of, 50 million users around the world. And by the way, we are a public company. We do to make money, but we're a subscription service. You're not paying for Netflix if there's nothing to watch. You're not paying for Spotify if you're not listening to the music. And so, we're not, I
don't think people are saying there's nothing to watch. They're saying there's not the season finale that they were looking for.
But listen, we would not have the huge business that we have if it didn't work. We just wouldn't. We just wouldn't. And it is hard, but there are connections and love, as we kind of heard about in this room.
Great.
But we can always do better. And I love Maria, and I love her ideas, and you should keep pushing and asking.
Yeah.
That's our attitude at Tinder.
Great. See, Maria, well worth the $55,000. Is that what it is?
We do personal consultations. Relax. And I have junior matchmakers, so don't worry. We'll work with you.
Now it is time to bring it home with closing remarks. It is almost the end of our evening here. Thank you, everyone, for being such an awesome crowd. Thank you to our debaters for being so awesome, really. It's been great. So up first, arguing that it is absolutely time to break up with the dating apps. One last time, Maria, tell us why. You have 2 minutes.
So as we wrap up this debate, I want to leave you with a story. I think about connections all the time, not just because I'm a professional matchmaker, but because it's in my blood. As you had heard in the beginning, I'm a 4th generation matchmaker. My grandmother, her mother, and generations before them matched people in Greece. So we're talking about during wartime as well, and famine, but nonetheless, I realized how different things were then. She introduced people who already shared and most likely a similar faith and maybe similar values. Her matchmaking wasn't just about pairing 2 individuals, but about bringing together people and families who could truly build a life together. So fast forward to today, and the way we connect has fundamentally changed. Dating apps have expanded the pool of possibilities in ways that my grandmother could have never imagined. I wish I could talk to her right now and tell her what a dating app is. It would be insane. It would go viral on TikTok, that's for sure. But we swipe past potential soulmates without realizing it. We get caught up in the paradox of choice, endless pen pal conversations where the culture of a simple match feels like, oh, that's enough, when really it's just the first step. So tonight, I'm not saying we need to abandon technology, but I am saying that we need to ask more from it. And if breaking up sounds too extreme, then maybe we can just take a moment to reassess and reconnect with what we truly want in life and how we value the way we spend our time. So I leave you with this question. If my grandmother could make lifelong matches with nothing but intuition and community and a deep understanding of human connection, why can't we ask our technology to do the same for us? Thank you again.
All right.
That's a nice story. Good story about your yaya.
Yes, yeah.
Yaya. Great. All right, Melissa, your closing argument. Now, you have 2 minutes to tell us why it is not time to break up with the dating apps.
I have 2 minutes to say, don't break up with dating apps and Tinder. So first, again, I want to acknowledge how hard dating is. I want to acknowledge that. I want to acknowledge how hard it is in New York City. I want to acknowledge how hard it is as a woman, as a person of color, as part of someone in the LGBT community in particular. But we are at a time when we are lonelier than we have ever been. We are at a time we're spending more alone time than we ever been. And dating apps provide a vital and critical outlet for so many people around the world. Last week, I was in Thailand. Do you know why I was in Thailand? Because they're the first country in Southeast Asia to legalize gay marriage. we didn't get into this. I thought y'all would come with like a little bit more. The reason why I was there as an executive at Tinder and away from like my 2 little kids at home flying 24 hours to Thailand is because we were in front of the scenes and behind the scenes helping to support the legalization of gay marriage. There are efforts that dating apps play around the world to enact positive social change, like LGBTQ equity. Another quick example, we were very involved in ending the blood ban for gay men in the US, which was a legacy holdover of the HIV/AIDS epidemic. So I think there is a lot more happening there than perhaps like the category the industry talks about, and certainly Tinder, and we should take more time to do that. But I've laid out a lot of points. I want to end with something else, and this is the latest stack of wedding invitations that I get to my office every week from Tinder. Let's read one or two. Okay, this is Cameron. You guys, Cameron and Cameron.
So I just
Spelled
want
with
to
a
say,
K and a C. How cute
sorry,
is that?
just one moment. For people listening to the podcast right now,
sorry.
Melissa has pulled out Exhibit A.
It's like 40 pounds. Just go with it, Naima. It's 40 pounds of invitations. Okay, and this is a handwritten note. Without Tinder, we would have never found each other. 5 years after matching, we're getting married. Thank you for helping us find our perfect match. This is a very cute magnet, save the date. These are the trend I hear. This is 2 lovely people, Shaquana and Esther. By the way, I'm very proud that a lot of our invitations are interracial couples. You may not know this, but another insight for Tinder, she's just yelling at me for time, is that there was an unprecedented spike in interracial marriages, and academics sought out to understand why in the US and Western Europe in particular, we're still very segregated. The answer was Tinder. Because we don't allow.
That is true.
And as someone who's in an interracial marriage, that's especially meaningful to me. So.
All right. Thank you. I was very worried that she was going to read all the letters.
We're reading all. That's the next set.
I'd like to read all the DMs that I get every day
Yes,
about online
do
dating
it.
problems. But
We'll do
All
both.
right. That concludes
the
our
after show.
debates. I really want to thank our debaters. Thank you so much, Melissa. Thank you so much, Maria. Thank you for being here. You guys are absolutely fantastic. You can find them on Instagram at Matchmaker Maria, at Melissa Hobley. I'd like to thank the crowd that was here tonight at the Comedy Cellar in New York, and thank the Comedy Cellar for having us. Thank you so much for being here. This is a Valentine's Day event at the Comedy Cellar. It never gets so romantic and smoochy in here, except when Dave Chappelle is on stage. So, you've all been great. Thank you for being here, and thank you.